What's up guys? Today I want to talk to you about one plugin that I use on all of my vocals. Now, creating your vocal effects chain can be really complicated. What plugins do you use and how much reverb do you add? What are those settings? I struggled with this for years until I found this one plugin that really fit my needs really well. It kind of does a little bit of all of that stuff very quickly. And I always try to look for these shortcuts, plugins that just get it right. And I found Greg Wells VoiceCentric plugin by Waves. This is a plugin that Greg Wells, a very famous producer and Grammy nominee, created with the company Waves. Waves makes tons of different plugins and I use a few of them, but none more than VoiceCentric. So I want to show you how I use VoiceCentric with just a couple other plugins today to get the vocals sounding the way they do on my tracks. I'm going to use the example of my song Pray For Me by The Weeknd that I did on my Black Panther video. I'll link that up here somewhere. Now what I'm most excited about is a few days ago, I contacted Greg Wells himself and I had a few questions about this plugin and how he uses it, and he wrote back and he offered some amazing tips on getting your vocals to sound awesome. So I'm going to share with you that conversation as well. But first, let me get into exactly what my effects chain looks like. So you're looking at 5 effects that I have on my vocals in the song Pray For Me. First up, if you're going to use autotune, make sure it's the first plugin that you use. Next up, I have some EQ. And this I just used EQ to get rid of those lows that don't matter for the vocals and just boost some of the high end that I wanted to use in this song. Now I tweak the EQ just a little depending on the song, but I don't do very much. Next up I have the compressor. I'm using the compressor that's included in Ableton Live. I use the compressor just to make my vocals sound kind of even in volume throughout the song. And you can see my settings for the compressor right here. You're gonna have to tweak this to the vocals in your own song or in the volume of singing that you do or your microphone. There's so many things that change here. And up next you see the GW VoiceCentric plugin. This is the Greg Wells VoiceCentric plugin.
I'm always ready for a war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same. Tell me who's gonna save me from myself when this life is all I know. Tell me who's gonna save me from this hell. Without you, I'm all alone. I'm always ready for a war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same. Tell me who's gonna save me from myself when this life is all I know. Tell me who's gonna save me from this hell. Without you, I'm all alone.
So for the vocals on Pray For Me, I just loaded up the GW VoiceCentric plugin and I didn't tweak much at all. Right off the bat, it sounded awesome. It kind of makes that vocal sound right in the center of the mix. It adds just enough of chorus, which it calls doubler, and it adds some reverb as well. It doesn't overdo any of this stuff, which is why I like it so much. In fact, the way that the vocals sit in the mix, you can hardly tell that there is much reverb or doubler or chorus or anything in there.
Tell me who's gonna save me from myself when this life is all I know. Tell me who's gonna save me from this hell. Without you, I'm all alone.
Now, the GW VoiceCentric plugin has a big knob in the middle, and all that does is allows you to set the intensity of what the plugin is doing. Now, the only thing I didn't add in this song is any delay, because I just loved the way it sounded right off the bat. So that's it. I didn't really change much at all. It just made it sound so much better right away. You'll see the last plugin that I have in this chain is a DeEsser. I use the Renaissance DeEsser by Waves, which is great to just get rid of a little bit of the S's and the sibilants in your vocals. Now, none of these plugins that I have here have had such a drastic effect to the vocal as the Greg Wells VoiceCentric plugin. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend that you try it if you're looking for a shortcut, a really easy way to make your vocals sound great. The VoiceCentric plugin only has a few presets and you really don't need much else. I love that it's not complicated and there are just a few knobs that you can use to tweak the sound. So now let's get into my conversation with Greg Wells himself. So I asked him 4 questions, and the first question I asked is, I'm sure you use VoiceCentric plugin in studio with some famous artists. Can you tell me who you use it for? He said he's used it for Katy Perry, Keith Urban, Pink, Grace Vanderwaal, and for the movie The Greatest Showman. The next question I asked him is, what other effects do you add to a vocal chain in studio along with VoiceCentric? So he says, sometimes I'll put an 1176 plugin before VoiceCentric for a very compressed and hyper-focused pop vocal sound. Other than that, the VoiceCentric on its own does what I want for a vocal. And I totally agree with him, and this is kind of what I did. I use the Ableton compressor myself, but he's actually used an 1176 plugin. So 1176 is a very famous hardware compressor that people have emulated in plugin form. Waves makes it. I think UAD makes a model of it as well as a software plugin. So this is something that's pretty easy to find. The next question I asked him, do you have a favorite inexpensive microphone that you think sounds great with VoiceCentric? Now, I was really interested in this because if you've watched my videos, you know that my microphone broke recently and I'm in search for a new microphone. So he says, I love the Slate VMS microphone and software. There's also an incredible website called microphone-parts.com, and they sell microphone kits that you can put together within an hour or 2 of work. For an extra fee, they will ship the kits already assembled. I'll put the links to these. I'll put the links to the Slate VMS microphone that he mentioned, as well as the microphoneparts.com website that he mentioned as well. My last question to Greg was, can you share a production tip or secret for home producers? He says, make a playlist of your favorite sounding records. When you're mixing your own tracks, always refer to the playlist to stay objective about mix balances and everything else. Doing this consistently will make your mixes 100% better. Actually, no, he said 1,000% better. It will teach you more record making than anything else can. Thanks so much for those tips, Greg. So, VoiceCentric is made by Waves. You can buy it on the Waves on waves.com for $69 as a plugin alone. But I would recommend buying the Greg Wells Signature Series collection of plugins, which is on sale right now for $69. You actually get 4 plugins by Greg Wells: Mix-Centric, which I use on all my mixes, Piano-Centric, Tone-Centric, and Voice-Centric. This is the sale price, so I'm not sure when these prices are going to change. So I want to know, what do you guys put on your vocal chain? What effects do you use? Do you use any plugins like this one that kind of does everything all in one really well? I'd love to know. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, keep making the music that you love, and I will see you guys later.